Hustle Skirt Podcast, the show that brings you economic equity for everyone every day with your host, Debra Gould. Yes, I am Debra Washington Gould, President and CEO of Debra Gould and Associate Inc., is a New Orleans-based management consulting and performance management business founded in 1996. Please visit DGA website at www.gouldassociates.com to learn more about my professional service offerings in training, facilitating, executive coaching, keynote speaking, and management consulting, www.gouldassociates.com. So you see this guest in front of me? I am so excited to have Mr. Stephen Kennedy as my guest today. But give me a moment for those who are just joining Debra and Stephen today, because maybe I want you all to check me out on the future podcasts of Hustle Skirt. So let me tell you, for the first timers who is joining Stephen today, about the Hustle Skirt podcast, that you can also hear and see this particular podcast at www.persistentlane.com. So here's the mission of the Hustle Skirt podcast. It is to promote, communicate, and amplify the influence of men and women like Stephen Kennedy, REO LLC. We are entrepreneurs for profit businesses. And every once in a while, I might invite a C-suite or a higher executive with a corporation or nonprofit organization. But today, it is all about my guest, Mr. Stephen Kennedy. So you may ask yourself, well, what is Hustle Skirt Podcast? I like to put in perspective of it's all about positivity, doing things in the positive way in our business community, mentoring, empowering others, being an advocate for minority businesses, and just keeping your ears and your heart and your mind to the pulse of what makes it work for entrepreneur, and reach back and help a young entrepreneur on the rise who are emerging. So I see Hustle Skirt is one of those things around hustle, hustle, hustle. Never give up. Be humble, be grateful. Don't take no for an answer. Believe in yourself, and you will hear that type of message from Stephen today. Stay focused, be strong, and by God, be prosperous, but give back in service to all mankind. Look at Stephen, y'all. Without a doubt, he did not live this long and strong to be put on the back shelf. And you're going to hear that in Stephen's message today. So without further ado, give me an opportunity to say, welcome to you, Stephen.
Thank you for having me, Ms. Gould.
Okay, so I'm going to put your credentials out there because I want others to know about Stephen Kennedy, the Chief Executive Officer of REO LLC, is a real estate development, urban planning, and policy consulting company in New Orleans, Louisiana. Stephen is a graduate of the University of New Orleans with a Bachelor of Science degree in urban and regional planning with a concentration in housing and economic development, and postgraduate studies at Tulane University of Architecture, Masters in Sustainable Real Estate Development Program. Stephen has developed affordable housing for low to moderate income families in New Orleans. the mayor of our great city of New Orleans, Mayor Latoya Cantrell, appointed Stephen to the New Orleans Business Alliance in 2018. Stephen was also appointed by the New Orleans City Council to serve on the Economic Development Advisory Committee and the Industrial Development Board, which mission is to spur economic development for the city of New Orleans, approving over $1 billion in various real estate development projects. I think it's about now for you to hear from the man in this particular moment in time in history who's doing great and magnificent things in the city of New Orleans. Once again, welcome to Mr. Stephen Kennedy. I am so happy to have you as my guest today. I want to be honest with my audience. Every time I'm in the same space with this young man, I am impressed. His first impression will just wow you. He is a thought leader. He is really making a difference in advocacy for minority businesses. So without further ado, Stephen, what's up, my friend?
Hey, how you doing today? Thank you for that astounding introduction. I feel real good. My day is going even better now.
Stephen, you are the man. I'm just impressed with you, and you're such an influence for a young person in the work that you're doing in our city. So I want my audience to know, just similar to your background, I grew up in public housing, but the difference and the mark that you're making in the New Orleans community as it relates to sustainability programs and low and moderate housing for others, you're taking a part of your history and you're putting it to work in the community. So, Stephen, I have a couple of questions that I often ask my guests. So are you ready to kick this off, Stephen, so they can hear the voice of Mr. Kennedy right now?
Yes, looking forward to it. Let's get it started.
So here we go. Tell us about your startup or existing business ideas or your career path. In other words, what motivates on a Monday morning the life of a Mr. Stephen Kennedy?
Well, so as you alluded to earlier, I grew up in public housing here in the city of New Orleans. And as a child, my aunt used to take us through all these nice neighborhoods around the St. Bernard. And I always aspired to feel like everyone should be able to live in a nice, sustainable, productive, and safe neighborhood. And I think over the years, that kind of led me into being able to develop housing, but also give opportunities to low to moderate income families where they can live in a comfortable, safe space. And it's just amazing. It makes my heart overpower with joy every time I see someone, walk into one of the units and they just excited, like, oh, and the kids be like, we're going to live here? I say, yeah. And so it's just great to be able to come from living in public housing to being able to produce quality, affordable housing for families. That motivates me every single day. Because I think of my grandmother and all my family members who, lived in public housing, who always pushed me to do, great things in my life.
Well, I was so eager and enthusiastic about having this experience with you today, Stephen. I wanted to showcase in the month of July 2023 for all of the male entrepreneurs that I've been privileged to know in my 27 years. And so I wanted Stephen Kennedy to be my first gentleman. So thank you for honoring me with this opportunity today, Stephen. So let's keep it going. So what's your favorite aspect of being an entrepreneur or successful leader?
I would say for being an entrepreneur in development, no 2 days are alike. And so it's always kind of like herding cats. And as a developer, kind of like a project manager of sorts. So you got to constantly navigate the different interests. So if it have to do with zoning, you might have to go to the city planning commission. You might have to go and talk to neighborhood individuals who live around a particular site. You might have to deal with, very different other government agencies, because affordable housing is not super profitable as you're doing market rate development, but the social impact is, super important. And so I think from that perspective, it's just being able to have that understanding about how to kind of navigate all the different moving parts of development. And so I think that that's mostly it for me, what I feel like, just the moving parts of it.
And speak to us as it relates to being a successful leader, the way you have modeled in the community.
Well, I've been inspired by many folks like Miss, Barbara Major, like a Don Hubbard, like a lot of these very different individuals who always, inspired me in a way and pushing me as a young man to, share my intellect with folks. And I think that that has been a driving factor, in my life to be able to push people and to be able to find ideas to be able to make our community better. As working alongside you and many other individuals, when I work in the collaborative, where most folks don't know the work that we're doing behind the scenes that have an impact on, minority and woman-owned businesses in our community. And I think that that's another motivating factor for me to being able to serve people, in policy work and legislation work, and they don't even know the work that's being done behind the scenes on their behalf. So I think that that's another motivating factor for me, is that we can give back in so many ways. And I think that my researching skills and my legislative skills allow me to be able to serve people in that different capacity as well.
And that is what's so remarkable about you. You made reference to the collaborative, and that website is www.thecollaborative504.com. And just to see the work around the state of Louisiana, how you follow so many of the House and things that's being approved in the House and passed in both the House and Senate, all the way through legislation. So I've learned so much when we're in meetings together of your research and how you drill so deep to give us all a sense of awareness. But I want to take a moment just to say hats off to that auntie of yours who used to give you those drives through those nice neighborhoods to plant that seed and that vision in you, Stephen, because you are doing some remarkable things in our great city of New Orleans. So we're going to keep it going. One other question for you. What makes a good leader?
What makes a good leader is somebody that listens. I think at the end of the day, leaders and most individuals, we all a student of life. And so there's always something that we learn. And so for me, I think a leader is somebody that listens with intent, somebody who's always willing to grow, and somebody who's always willing to put other people forward. Because I think everything in life is not just about me, it's about we. And that's what great leaders do. Great leaders understand is about we and being able to motivate other people to be their best self. That's some of the stuff that I think that a good leader, qualities they just should have.
So we're in critical conversation, and I often hear you say, know their why. And while all 5 W's are important, from the what, the when, the where, but that why, and that's something that you try to articulate to say, hold up, folks, know the why when you're at the table, having that voice at the table. Can you speak to that? You say a little bit, that why, who is willing to listen, to learn, and grow constantly as the world is changing. But can you just elaborate a little bit more about that why for a moment, Stephen?
Yeah, because I think we all as human beings and entrepreneurs know, what we're doing, we know when we're doing it, we don't know where we're doing it. But the main thing is why we are doing something, because most folks jump into the what they're due and the products and stuff that they serve, but they don't say what's the really motivating factors on why they're doing what they're due. And that's the point that I said about earlier, why I got involved in affordable housing, development is because I grew up in public housing. So my why factor was, this is why I'm doing it, because I feel that people should be able to live in quality, affordable housing to be able to raise their kids that's close to transportation, that's close to schools, that's close to jobs, that's close to public amenities. So I think everybody got to know their why and what motivates them to get up every morning to be able to be productive entrepreneurs and citizens.
Absolutely. Well said, Stephen. So we have a few more minutes in this particular interview. So I want to kind of like go in a different direction that's really centered around the theme of the Hustle Skirt podcast, economic equity for everyone, every day. So let me just engage you in a real quick conversation around equity and equality. Because as you know, Stephen, the importance of defining equality and equity are two different concepts and thought processes. So when we think about equality, it means each individual or group of people is given the same resources or opportunities. And on the other hand, in the world that we operate from every day, equity recognizes that each person has different circumstances and distributes the exact resources and opportunity needed to achieve an equal amount. So think of it like this also. Think about equity this way. Given what is needed to be successful, it's not giving everyone that exact same thing. So with that being said, share your thoughts around equity.
Yeah, equity is important. I think you did an excellent job distinguishing the two. But let's say, for instance, if I can talk about like just the Brown, well, not really the Brown versus Board of Education. I was going to talk about the Croson decision and how when we talking about like equity, everybody kind of have the trying to use my words politically be politically correct. And so I think like equity for some of the work that we've been kind of working on now. And so like in regards to like the set aside legislation. And so that legislation is focused specifically on small business just because it's race and gender neutral here in the state of Louisiana. But however, that particular legislation can provide some equitable outcomes because we know that small businesses will be competing with small businesses. And so that's something really my thinking is that how can we have a level playing field where one team have 11 people on the field and another team have 9 people on the field. And when we're talking about equitable outcomes, we got to have both, 11 people on both sides of the ball. But also we got to have the same type of opportunities with equipment and all those things to be able to prepare to be able to go into competition. And so that's just some of my ways how I think about equity is being able to be given all the right tools to be able to compete in a competitive landscape.
Absolutely. Same resources and opportunities. So let me throw something at you before I bring the program to a close. I recently heard something by 2 NBA players, one being LeBron James. And he had a quote that stated, if we can be equals in sports, we can be equals everywhere. What comes up for you when you hear that?
I think like, LeBron is a great athlete and he's doing, great things, for his family and in the community. I think with his thinking, I'm not in his head, but just thinking about some of the stuff where people say he just should just be an athlete, and just play sports. And and when you're on a basketball court, yeah, you equal because y'all got talents, y'all made it to the NBA. But then when you step off the court, people feel you shouldn't talk about social issues that's impacting communities, especially communities of color. And so when I hear that statement, from LeBron James, one of the greats, athletes in our time frame, it just show you that, he is conscious about not only are he an athlete, but he's also a man and an individual and a human being, and just happen to be of African descent. And so give us the same amount of respect that y'all give us on the court, when we're not on the court, is what I hear from that statement.
Absolutely. And if you could just give me one word, how would you describe the first thought that comes to your mind, the word equity?
Fairness.
I agree. Fairness. That wraps it up. So, Stephen, the one thing that we didn't have an opportunity, and I'm also going to share it too, can you tell our audience, REO LLC, take a moment to describe a day in the life of your business. Please share your contact information with my listening audience. Would you take a moment to do that for us?
Yeah, so my contact information is, you can always visit my website at REO Advisors, that's advisors.com, and you can see some of the services that I offer, and also just some of the development work that I do in the community. You can also reach me at 504-287-3007. That's my personal cell phone number. So folks can reach me directly. I like to, communicate and talk with people directly. And also you can reach me via email at my name. That's Stephen with a V, Steven, Kennedy, Kennedy, 78 at Gmail, if you want to reach me via email. And I guess the other kind of went off. What's the other part of the question was?
Well, we wanted to make sure you share your contact information, your website, your email and telephone number. If there's any followers on your social media handles, your LinkedIn,
got you.
Instagram.
Yeah, you can also find me on LinkedIn at Stephen Kennedy. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn as well. And I guess a day in the life is the other part of your question, what I thought about a day in the life. And so it's different in the development world. Is different just because you have so many different parts. Like some days I might have meetings with city agencies. Some days I might have meetings with investors on who want to invest into low-income housing tax credit projects. Someday I might, as I said earlier, might meet with community members who interested in hearing about the project. Someday I might just, meet with individuals who are looking for housing. Someday I might meet with folks who are looking for a development consultant, who can help them put together a project, a complete application. So no day is alike. And I think that's the beauty of why I love development, just because you got so many different moving parts of it, even though there are frustrating moments because development is just not perfect. But at the same time, it's so soothing to be able to know that every day is a different challenge that I get to tackle and face.
Okay. And because you did answer that in my first question, you had a chance to reinforce it. Of all of your contact information, which one is the fastest way to reach REO LLC? Is it the website, your social media, or your telephone number or email?
I would say phone. I think phone is because I don't always get a chance to check my emails all the time, just because I have so many of them.
Can you repeat that phone number for us?
Yes, ma'am. It's 504-287-3007. And that's my personal cell phone. You'll get me, not an operator.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you have just heard from the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Stephen Kennedy with REO LLC. Please reach out to Stephen. I don't know about you, Stephen, but I thoroughly enjoy having you as my guest today. And I hope that this particular platform bring you even more success in the way you are modeling it so well in the city of New Orleans. He is a keeper, ladies and gentlemen. He can be anywhere within the USA, but he resides and lives here in New Orleans. So it's all about economic equity. Reach out to this business owner. So we're going to close at this particular moment. But again, the Hustle Skirt podcast objective is to empower you to speak power, embrace change in your own vision, mission, and purpose. Get fired up like Stephen, the way he is doing things in the city of New Orleans around sustainability projects. And he's doing it with a passion. Make sure to visit our website at www.persistentlane.com, where you can subscribe to the Hustle Skirt podcast. 9 different platforms, just to name a few: iHeartRadio, iTunes, Amazon FM, just to name a few. And while you edit, if you enjoy this particular interview with Stephen Kennedy, we will appreciate a rating on iTunes, just to say we heard you loud and clear, Stephen Kennedy. And if so, just pick up the phone and call Stephen. Tell a friend, a neighbor, or someone in your community about this interview today. You're listening to the Hustle Skirt Podcast, the show that brings you economic equity for everyone, every day, with your host, Debra Gould. And once again, Stephen, thank you for the privilege and value of your time. Enjoy your week, Stephen.
Definitely. Thank you once again for having me. And this is a great podcast. I think it's going to be real informational to our community, because a lot of folks have podcasts, but most folks don't focus on equity. And I think that this is a great platform to be doing that, and by somebody who's been in this work for many, many years. So thank you once again for having me, and thank you for all that you do as well in our community.
Make yourself a great week on purpose, Stephen, and thank you for that positive feedback. That is I'm intentional, Stephen, and that is what it's designed for. Definitely. Create platforms for individuals like you who are making a difference in the business community in terms of creativity and innovation. And you're on it, my friend. Thank you.
Definitely. Take it easy.